If you're a husband and a Christian, do you know what job one for you is? Matt Jacobson does.
God has already stipulated what our first priority is. And our first priority is that little phrase, love your wife like Christ loved the church. And the reason that we have to get that right as Christian men, if you don't love your wife as Christ loved the church, you're actually disqualified for leadership in the local assembly. See, it's not optional to have a wife who isn't cherished. If you show me a church that is full of godly men, I can show you a church that's full of cherished wives.
This is Family Life Today. Our hosts are Dave and Ann Wilson. I'm Bob Lepine. You'll find us online at FamilyLifeToday.com. What does it look like for a husband to really cherish his wife? Matt and Lisa Jacobson will give us help with that today. Stay with us. And welcome to Family Life Today. Thanks for joining us. I have been thinking about this subject a lot.
Boy, oh boy, what subject is this, Bob?
I've been thinking about love, and part of the reason is because, as you guys know, I just recently wrote a book that came out called Love Like You Mean It.
Right.
We have a cruise by that name, so now we've got a book by that name as well. And what I did in the book was go back to 1 Corinthians 13 and looked at all of the characteristics of what love is according to the scriptures. And the conclusion I came to is that most of us have a very superficial idea of what love is. And when we get married, we're in love with the romantic comedy idea of love, not with a biblical idea of love. I think we set out pursuing a you've got mail approach to love rather than a you've got Jesus approach to love. And that's a very different approach.
And I think our culture sets us up for failure in those regards because we really don't know what love is. I bet Marianne is a recipient of all your learnings.
As soon as I start applying it, she will be, yes. All I'm doing is writing about it right now. But we've got some friends who are joining us on Family Life Today who have been thinking very wisely and practically on this subject, and we're glad to have them. Matt and Lisa Jacobson are our guests. Welcome to Family Life Today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really great to be here.
Matt and Lisa live in Central Oregon in the Bend Sun River area there. They've been involved in the publishing world for years. Matt is pastor of a local church in the area. Did you decide to do this as a book first, or were you just starting to brainstorm together? How can we do a better job of loving one another?
Actually, it grew out of us sitting around in a cafe one day, which we often would do. We'd go and write together and at one of the local coffee shops. And as we were sitting there, we were kind of holding hands and I had my latte in my hand. And we were just enjoying one of those moments in marriage where you go, you know what, this is good. And we're just thankful for enjoying the fruit of all we've been investing and growing in over several decades.
Right.
And as we were talking about it, we started thinking about how much of our marriage that we're enjoying today is a result of little choices that we've made over time. And how oftentimes we look at marriage and we think of those big topics, those big hard things, and that is a part of marriage. I'm not minimizing that, but how much of just the happiness, the closeness is a consequence of daily choices, of doing things or saying things that communicate love to the other person. So it was kind of a casual thing where we said, let's just write down all the little things you can think of that you've done that you feel contributed to what we're enjoying today. And so he said, okay, I'll write down my list and you write down your list, and we won't look at each other's list, so we weren't going to cheat. And we came up with 100, literally.
Really?
Yes. And we thought, you know what? Other people might even benefit from those little things that that make a huge difference.
And those lists are what became the books you've written, 100 Ways to Love Your Wife and 100 Ways to Love Your Husband, which are books that give you those bullets, those nuggets that are all about practical things we can do that are just little adjustments we can make that have a huge impact on a marriage over time.
So, Lisa, did you come up with your list of things you had done to make Matt feel loved? Or did he say, this is what you have done that has made me feel loved?
No, that's a good question. So, yes, I wrote down the things that I have tried to do to communicate and express love to him. And when he looked at my list, he said, yeah, no, this is absolutely right on. Because I didn't.